want to commit suicide, why don't you just open a window and jump? It's so much faster and cleaner than getting on the witness stand.
Nora, what makes you think I'm going to self-destruct?
What makes you think you won't?
Because I'm an intelligent, articulate woman. I've got a story to tell.
Write your memoirs. Sell your story to the television, because I will not, and I cannot let you take that stand.
Nora, I know that you're trying to protect me, but there is still a chance that that jury will go into that room, put their collective minds together, and decide that I murdered Victor.
Yes, there's always that chance.
Well, it's a chance I can't afford to take.
You're forgetting the last testimony that they heard. Lee Chapin, Victor Lord's butler, said that he knows you were not in the room when Victor Lord died.
But what if the jury focuses on Hank's cross-examination? Hank made a mockery of Chapin's age, his memory, his facts. No, I have got to do everything in my power to reinforce Chapin's testimony by telling my version of what happened that night.
And what makes you think the jury's going to listen to you? You haven't exactly been winning little gold stars from those 12 chairs over there.
All the more reason for me to testify. It's our chance to show the jury the real Dorian Lord.
That's what I'm afraid of. Dorian, I win cases. That's what I do. I fight for my client, and I win. And I will not have you blow hundreds of hours of my work to satisfy your ego.
Nora, if you lose this case, it's just another case to you. But it's my life, and I'm not going to let them take it away from me without putting up a fight. Nora, please put me on the stand.
Well, what's our alternative? I mean, Nora's used all of her witnesses. All she can do is rest her case.
Well, Bo says there's one more witness on Nora's list.
What about it, Hank? What if Nora puts Dorian on the stand?
Well, I don't think she will. I mean, Nora knows that with Dorian there's a risk of self-destruction. Now, Nora, she's many things.
All rise.
Dumb isn't one of them.
Look.
Be seated.
Remember?
No theatrics, I know. Nora, I promised I'd behave myself, didn't I?
You'd better. Or else those 12 faces over there will all be saying the same thing. Guilty.
Ms. Gannon, if you have no further witnesses, I suggest we expedite matters and go right to summation.
Great.
Actually, Your Honor, I do have one last witness. The most important witness of all. The defense calls Dorian Lord.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Dorian Lord.
You may begin questioning of your witness, Miss Gannon.
So you worked continually, putting yourself through medical school and becoming a doctor. That was about, what, 20 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes?
And where was your first position as staff physician?
Landview Hospital.
Well, that must have been a very important event in your life.
Oh, it was, most definitely. I mean, there were many obstacles along the way. There were the financial hurdles, all of them, and then there were family tragedies. So when I came on staff at Landview Hospital, it was the realization of a dream. It truly was.
What made you want to become a doctor?
I wanted to help people, to make their lives better. And may I say that when I was doing that, I was very happy.
Your Honor, Mrs. Lord's desire to heal and help is hardly why we're here.
Is that an objection, Mr. Gannon?
Your Honor, I'd simply like to move on to the issue at hand, if we may.
Well, you read my mind, Mr. Gannon. We'll move on. How did you tell us about your first meeting with Victor Lord?
My first. I'm not sure that I can do that. I think that we probably met at some social function or at the hospital. But I can give you the exact date that I came to know Victor very well.
Tell us about that.
It was March 3rd, 1975. Victor Lord suffered a massive heart attack in my home.
Ah, yes. The prosecution's witness, Victoria Lord Buchanan, admitted that you saved his life. Would you agree with that?
Most definitely. He had a blockage of the left ventricle to the heart. It caused it to collapse, triggering a heart attack. Victor was essentially minutes from death.
And what did you do?
I applied CPR. That's when you press very hard. You strike the patient just below the sternum. That's right here, in an effort to force the heart to start beating again. I did that, but it wasn't enough. So I had to kneel over Victor and press very forcefully on his heart, pumping it over and over and over again. Basically, I was pumping his blood for him, breathing for him. Eventually, his heart did start to beat again, and an ambulance arrived just a few minutes later, and he was saved.
My goodness, I'm sure Victor Lord was very grateful that you'd been there.
Absolutely. And I think that it explains the rather extraordinary bond that the two of us felt from that time on.
You became very close?
Oh, yes.
And you fell in love?
Yes, we did.
And then you were married?
Yes. And although his family felt that I had only married him for his money, well, not his whole family, his daughter, Victoria. But it wasn't true. He was a good man, and I loved him.
Thank you, Mrs. Thorpe.
I never understood why she chose to ignore the fact that I had saved his life, or why she hated me for loving him and letting him live the last few months of his life happily married.
Mrs. Lord.
Unless it was just the money. I mean, she always was very determined to inherit all of it.
Objection.
Sustained. Witness will answer the questions and not make speeches.
Of course, I'm sorry, Your Honor. It just does seem obvious that that was what she was interested in all along. The money.
Objection, Your Honor. Move to strike.
I will have order in the court. Order, or I will clear the court. I'll have it quiet in here. Quiet. I have warned this
want you,
assembly
Dorian. No
enough.
tricks, no games.
Mrs. Lord, you will only answer questions put to you by the attorney.
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Lord, how long were you and Victor Lord married?
7 months, 4 days. We both knew that we didn't have very long, but he was very brave.
During this 7-month marriage, did you spend a lot of time together?
We were virtually inseparable.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only way that Victor would have it.
She bullied my father into isolation. She wouldn't let Tony see him, and then she wouldn't let me see him.
And after his heart attack, he had to cut back on his time spent on business at the Banner, yes?
Oh, yes, he tired very easily. I tried to encourage him to keep his attention up at the Banner, but he said that it didn't matter to him anymore and that he wanted to spend more time with me.
And aside from you, whom else did he spend his time with?
In all honesty, virtually no one. And that was his choice.
Liar. What about his children?
Victor was in a very fragile state, and being with people who disturbed him was really out of the question.
Objection, Your Honor. Mrs. Lord's commentary on Mr. Lord's state of mind is supposition.
No, excuse me. I'm sorry, that's not true. Your Honor, Victor told me himself that he did not wish to see Vicky or Tony, but most especially Vicky.
Yes, all right, I'll allow this.
Mrs. Lord, did Victor Lord ever indicate to you that he did not want to see his daughter Victoria at all?
Yes.
Why was that?
Because Victor was very deeply disturbed by Vicky's marriage to Joe Riley. They argued about it. Oh, time and time again. Finally, Victor he said he did not want to see Vicky anymore. It was just too painful.
Oh, painful how?
It's what caused his first stroke.
Mrs. Lord, are you saying that the stroke that ultimately ended Victor Lord's life was caused by his agitation over his daughter's marriage?
I hate to say something like this right here out in the open, but since Vicky is the one who forced this trial, my answer is yes, that is exactly what happened.
Objection, Your Honor.
Oh, no, Your Honor, I'm sorry. This witness is a doctor, and she was intimately acquainted with the medical and psychological condition of the deceased. Therefore, I say that this line of questioning is entirely relevant to this case.
Continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Lord, when you say that his daughter and her husband upset Victor Lord, what exactly do you mean?
I mean that when he saw Victoria, his daughter, he had a negative physical reaction. His heart would start to beat faster, his breathing would become erratic. It was really quite dramatic.
Thank you.
As in the case of that first stroke, Vicky and Joe had just left after visiting, and Victor was railing and railing about how much he disliked Joe and how he was sure that Joe was going to hurt Vicky someday, and how frustrated he was that Vicky wouldn't or couldn't listen to him, and how deeply, deeply disappointed he was in his daughter. He became very agitated, very upset. He worked himself up into such a state of anxiety that right before my very eyes, he suffered a massive stroke.
You miserable liar! You're a lying, murdering liar!
Mrs. Buchanan, I will have you escorted out of this courtroom and banned from these proceedings if there is another outburst. Is that understood? Now, Miss Gannon, is there any possibility that we could end these proceedings before midnight?
Oh, yes, Your Honor. I'm just going to roll this right along. Mrs. Lord, I have to ask you some questions about the period following Victor Lord's first stroke. I would like some short and specific answers. Understood?
Of course.
Thank you. As Victor Lord's primary caregiver, did you make arrangements for care upon his release from the hospital?
Yes, I hired Victor a private duty nurse.
Was that Ethel Crawford?
Yes.
And how long did Ethel Crawford care for Victor Lord?
At home?
Yes.
A month. Because during that time, he suffered a second, much more severe stroke and had to be readmitted into the hospital.
Ethel Crawford testified in this court that Victor Lord had that second stroke because you withheld medication from him. Do you disagree with that assertion?
I most certainly do. It's completely untrue. On the day that Victor had his second stroke, I did everything in my power to save his life, as I did on the day he had his first stroke, as I did on the day that he had his heart attack earlier that year.
All right. So Victor Lord was admitted into Landview Hospital and he was stabilized. How much time did you spend with him at the hospital?
I kept a vigil at his bedside.
I see. And did Victor Lord insist on seeing only you as he had when he was recuperating at home?
He was unconscious from the time of that second stroke.
I see. So, in fact, the visitors who had so upset him when he was at home, his daughter and his son, and Vicky and Tony, and Vicky's husband, Joe, could now visit him at the hospital without upsetting him in the manner you just described, because the man was comatose.
That's right.
And yet other visitors were in the room often, were they not, without anyone raising a question.
That's true.
All right, why don't we move on? Let's move on to the night that Victor Lord died. Were you in the hospital with him?
As always.
Did you leave his room from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m.?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I had been sitting by his bed for hours, and I had become despondent. As a physician, I knew that each day that he spent in a coma, his chances of recovery became more remote. I was filled with such sadness that I thought some fresh air would do me good.
So you left the room?
Yes.
What time was this?
9:15 p.m.
Are you certain about the time?
Yes, I am. I'm certain about everything that happened from then on because it turned out to be the last hour of my dear husband's life.
Where did you go when you left the room?
I went into the corridor and down the stairs. I sat on a bench outside the hospital doors. I was just trying to collect my thoughts.
Did anyone see you there?
Oh, Miss Gannon, please, this all happened 18 years ago. Little did I think then that I would be sitting here now, defending myself against these unjust, cruel charges.
So no one saw you?
I'm sure that many people saw me, but I would be hard-pressed to produce witnesses now.
How long were you away from Victor Lord's room?
Not more than 15 minutes.
And when you went back inside, did you speak to anyone before you went back into Victor Lord's room?
Yes. I spoke to Joe Riley briefly in the hallway. And then suddenly there were shouts coming from Victor's room. And they told me that Victor was gone. I mean, this man whose hand that I had held for days and days, trying to will him to come back to me, was gone. And I hadn't even had a chance to say goodbye. I would have liked that. I would have liked to have said goodbye.
Miss Gannon, if we take a brief recess, do you think your client will be able to continue?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. Court is recessed for 15 minutes.
All rise.
What do you think you're doing?
I was just trying to answer your question.
Don't play games, Dorian. If you think just because I put you on the stand now you can take control of the case, you better think again.
Nora,
You're lying. Now stop it. You told me you hated Victor, so let's just cut the weeping widow routine, shall we?
All right. But you must admit the jury's looking at me very differently now.
Dorian is doing it again. She is getting away with murder all over again.
I'll just try to stay calm. Hank hasn't had his turn yet.
Sloane's right. Give Dorian enough rope and eventually she'll hang herself.
Do you think so? Have you looked at the jury? Dorian has convinced them. It is written all over their faces.
Dorian's putting on quite a show, huh?
Yeah. But you know what the funny thing is?
What?
Nora looks like she doesn't know what's coming half the time.
That's just great. I bet she's ready to kill right now. So you think you're going to be able to break Dorian down?
Well, buddy, let's hope so. Let's just hope so.
I want simple answers. I mean it. One word, one syllable, if at all possible.
All right, Nora, but I just want to make sure I make things clear to the jury.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm sure. You just make sure the answers are short and to the point.
Of course.
Mrs. Lord sure seems determined to have her day in court, don't you think?
I don't talk to reporters about my aunt, all right? Excuse me.
Mrs. Lord, do you feel well enough to continue?
Yes, Your Honor. Furthermore... Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. Proceed, Miss Gannon.
Thank you, Dorian. Why don't we just cut right to the chase? Why were you paying Ethel Crawford $60,000 a year for 18 years?
Because I thought it was the right thing to do. To protect myself and the Lord family. You see, I knew that Irene Clayton had been in the hospital that night.
Excuse me. We're talking about the Irene Manning Clayton that the butler said had a long affair with Victor Lord?
Yes, I knew all about that affair. But at the time of Victor's first stroke, he begged me. I mean, he literally begged me not to let that information be known. You see, he knew how deeply it would upset his daughter, Victoria.
So you paid Ethel Crawford the blackmail because...
Because it was what Victor wanted me to do. He was dead, and he hadn't wanted a scandal. And I'm sorry. I know that it was the wrong thing to do, but I was only trying to protect Victor Lord's good name, and I'm deeply sorry for it. Deeply.
All right, well, why don't we move on, and let's move on to why you went to Victor's mausoleum the night before his body was to be exhumed.
I went for the same reason that Vicky went. To pay my respects to a good man whose final resting place was about to be violated.
Let's just go over something once more to really clarify this. All right. Mrs. Lord, were you in Victor Lord's hospital room when he died?
No.
Did you wish him dead?
Oh, dear God, no.
Mrs. Lord, did you kill Victor Lord?
No, I did not kill Victor Lord. I swear it. I swear it on the life of my child. No.
Miss Gannon, is there a problem?
No, Your Honor. As a matter of fact, I have no further questions at this time. But may I request to have a private word with my client before cross-examination begins, please?
No objection, Your Honor.
Very well.
Thank you. All right, Dorian, we got through that one, okay? And now Hank is going to do everything he possibly can to rip everything you said into tiny little paper shreds. Now, I know seeing Cassie here is very, very distracting, but I really need you to be focused. Dorian, get the old zombie out of me now, okay?
It's all right. It's all right. I'm fine.
Okay. Just answer Hank's questions, all right? That's all. Just answer it, and don't, no matter what, no matter how Hank provokes you, don't get defensive, or you're guilty as sin. All right? Here we go, Dorian. Now just restrain yourself. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're looking a little worried, Bo.
I think Nora let Dorian blindside her. But Hank will come through.
Let's just cut the charade.
Objection.
Sustained.
Withdrawn. Mrs. Lord. You say you visited Victor Lord's mausoleum on the night before his exhumation to pay your last respects.
Yes.
Then would you please explain to the jury why you needed a can of caustic lye to pay your last respects? Or how about this lug wrench, Mrs. Lord? Would you explain to this jury why you need these with you? Mrs. Lord, we're waiting for an answer.
I have no idea how those things got into the crypt.
Now, why am I having a hard time believing that?
I don't know. The only thing that I can think of,
Yes?
well, I hate saying something like this, but my back was towards the door, and I did not see her come in, but it does seem entirely possible that Victoria Lord Buchanan brought them with her. She has always said that she would do anything to destroy me. Obviously, this included bringing false evidence.
All right, let me... that you think Victor Lord's brought these items to plant as you.
I hate to say such things about people, but since I did not bring them with me and she was the only other person there, I'm sorry, but you did ask the question.
Why would Victoria Buchanan do such a thing?
That's simple. She's always hated me. I have always been the wicked stepmother. I stole her father's love.
Oh, so this is not a murder trial. It's all a fairy tale.
Let's hope it has a happy ending.
I don't like the way this is turning around for Dorian at all.
Mrs. Lord, this is a signed statement from Ernie Harbert.
I'm sorry, I don't know anybody by that name.
March 17th, you attempted to hire this man to break into your husband's mausoleum.
My goodness. I certainly did nothing of the kind. I mean, what an absolutely ghoulish thought, beyond belief, that I would hire some lowlife to break into my husband.
Attempted to hire, I said, but he refused. And if it wasn't to break in, then why did you call him? Now, I can show you the phone records. What did you want Mr. Harbert to do for you? Help you commune with the soul of your dead husband?
Yes, go right ahead. Show the jury just how snide and sarcastic it can be.
Okay, fine. We can just get back to this later. Mrs. Lord, we've got plenty of statements to get through, right? Hey, but why snag right away? We have affidavits from bankers, stockbrokers, airline employees. Apparently, you tried to gather and hide large sums of money abroad, planning to follow that money there.
No. I was attempting to diversify my investments at all.
Mrs. Lord, tried to skip bail. You were on your way out of... I caught you at the airport myself.
All right. I admit it. I had lost all faith in the judicial system. I felt that Vicki had used all of her influence on the press, on you, on the police department. I did not have a lawyer yet who was willing to represent me. I'm sorry, I am only human, and I made a mistake. I decided that it was better to run.
No!
To escape.
No, that's a lie! Mother! She was saying that to protect me. She was trying to help me because I didn't want them to take my baby. My mother, Joe, my mother, you have to tell the truth. You were losing your hands on her. Get your filthy hands off of my daughter!
Order! Order!
So you're saying you hold Sloan Carpenter responsible for this entire vendetta, as you call it?
Yes, absolutely. He did his so-called research. He jumped to his nasty little conclusions. And that piece of garbage that he called a book became a national bestseller at my expense. My reputation was ruined, and he loved it.
Why? Why would he want to destroy you? He is family, isn't he? His son is married to your daughter.
Yes. And it is because of his son that he did it. His son hates me. His son is jealous of me.
His son? Reverend Andrew Carpenter, rector of St. James Church, is jealous of you?
I know, it's awful, isn't it? But yes, he is jealous of my relationship with my daughter, the closeness that exists between Cassie and me. He is jealous, and he feels threatened, and he has even tried to turn her against me.
Ah, Vendetta Part 2. First the Army, and now the church.
That's right. I'm raving. I'm paranoid. That is what you would like the ladies and gentlemen of the jury to believe. I think the whole world is against me. Yes, everybody wants revenge.
Including you, Dorian? Didn't you try to get revenge on General Carpenter? Didn't you coerce an innocent student into lying about a false sexual harassment?
It's totally inadmissible.
Yes, it's sustained. Strike that last question. Jury will disregard.
Okay, fine. We'll forget about your fighting back. But you did want just a little piece of revenge, didn't you, Dorian? So you plotted to bring him down.
A man like that, with his character, lack of it, had no business...
You were so desperate to cover your own crimes, Dorian.
What crimes?
So driven.
I did
so
not
blind.
do
so
anything.
unconcerned with the ramifications
No,
of what you were doing.
he was
you
the one. He was the one who didn't care who he hurt.
Your
His
daughter's
book,
health
his life,
was in jeopardy.
He is
What didn't she fall down a flight of stairs? Wasn't her baby. Her, at that point, unborn baby, eventually to die because of your selfish need for revenge.
Bastard!
Order.
Bastard!
Order. The witness.
How dare you say that?
The witness will remain
How dare
seated.
you say that?
Be seated. I'll have order in the court, or I will clear everyone.
Down now. Your Honor, I object to the way my client has been treated at the hands of the prosecution.
I said I wanted quiet in here, and that means everyone.
And what about the prosecutor, who is nothing but a puppet for Victoria Buchanan and her
Bailiff,
entire family?
restrain her.
Your Honor.
Restrain me, restrain you.
Dorian.
You are certainly not impartial. I am a vote-getter to him. I'm a rich person that he can crucify because he wants to be the next governor of the state. Shut up. Sit.
Thank you, Miss Gannon. Prosecution may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Lord, let's talk about the blackmail you claim you only
Please,
paid
how
because...
often do I have to keep repeating myself? I paid off that sniveling little liar because I was trying to keep my family's name from being dragged through the mud. I mean, you make it sound so simple, but I was not born rich. I was not born sucking on a silver spoon. I made my money.
Oh, the good old-fashioned way? Marrying Victor Lord for his money?
And what if I did? Which, of course, I did not. But even if I had, that is still not a crime.
Your Honor, my client's
I mean, we are talking about real life here, aren't we? We are not talking about some fairy tale. It is time that we all grew up here. Victor Lord was not a Prince Charming, especially when it came to the bedroom. Monster? That's really too small a word for the horror that he was, and not just to me. He had an entire harem. If he was murdered, any one of them would have been justified and happy to have killed him. He was cruel, he was insatiable, and he had some very peculiar sexual appetites.
I can't listen to this. I can't stay here.
What's the matter, Vicky? Leaving so soon? I've only just started. You can't take the truth about your father
listening to her. I'm all right. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll be fine.
Mr. Gannon, make your case and let's put the jury to work tonight.
Yes, sir.
Dorian, you calm down now.
I am calm.
Commissioner, not now.
Yes, Your Honor, but
Now.
can't you see she's upset?
Sir,
Miss Gannon, this is the last
outside.
time.
I'll follow you.
Miss Gannon,
Yes, Your Honor, I heard you. My client is in the middle of...
everyone can hear your client, Miss Gannon. Everyone can see your client.
You see, this is a lynching.
One more word from the witness, and I will hold you in contempt.
I am in contempt. This trial is nothing but a mockery.
I will have no hesitation in gagging you and removing you from the court.
Try it.
Mr. Gannon?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Lord, true or false?
What? Certain
pills in the midst.
No.
And when he survived that, not die, you went to his hospital. You snuck into his hospital room, took the pillow from under his head, and you smothered him. Didn't you, Dorian?
I will petition.
Smothered him. The pillow with your hands, and you murdered Victor. You killed Victor Lord!
No! God's sake! Cassie! Cassie!
Bailiff.
Where's my daughter?
Doctor standing by, will you please?
Where is my baby? Where is my daughter?
Oh, there you are. Are you all right?
No, I'm fine, but someone said that my mother had a breakdown on the stand.
How is she?
Well, she's with the doctor right now. I'm sure Dorian would feel a lot better if her daughter would look in and say hello.
I don't know, Nora. I don't think my being here is doing my mother any good. When she started having trouble, was it for real?
Yes. She absolutely had no control. I mean,
That's her. That's the Black Widow's daughter.
How does it look to you? Opinion is running real high for conviction. What's your position on capital punishment now?
She's guilty.
They say your mama's gonna burn.
Oh. Why won't they just leave me alone? Why won't they leave me alone? They said after they took me out that you had some trouble on the stand.
What if I did? It was worth it. Because I got to see how much you really care. I always knew it, darling, that deep down in your heart, that was how you felt. But, I mean, having you here in the courtroom today meant so much to me. You are going to come back in the court, aren't you? Honey, I know that they'll let you back in.
No, I don't think that's a good idea, Mother. I'm making things worse for you.
How can you say
No,
that?
I'm not helping you, Mother. If I hadn't been there today, then all this might not have happened, and your testimony, it might have gone just fine.
Oh, Cassie,
No, Mother,
stop.
I'm not coming back, and that's why I'm here now.
No, Cassie. Please don't say that. Don't do this to me now. I need you, honey. Please. I can't get through this without you. You understand? I need you. I can't get through this alone. Not alone. Cassie, please. Please don't go. I'm begging you.
Mother.
Don't you abandon me now. Not you.
Mother, let me go. Trust me. I know what's best for both of us. This time I know.
Of course you do. You know best. I just wasn't thinking very clearly, that's all. Of course you know, you know. Sweetheart, I would like to ask one little favor.
What is it?
Would you say it? Please. Say that you know that I'm innocent. Please. Say it. Cassie.
I'm sorry.
No.
I wish I could, but I can't. I wish I could. I'm not gonna turn my back on you. I'll do whatever I can to help you. But please don't ask me to believe something that I can't.
Are you ready to go?
No. No, I'm gonna stay for the rest of the trial.
You're sure? All right, then. Honey, I want to meet you in the courtroom. There's something that I have to talk to your mother about. Alone.
To kick someone when they're down.
Dorian, that's
Reverend.
not why I'm
I
here.
don't need a sermon on the wages of my sins from you, if that's what you're here to.
Dorian.
Just leave, okay?
Dorian, no sermon, no lecture. I'm here to ask you a favor.
Oh, I'm in jail, awaiting the verdict in my murder trial, and you want something from me?
Not me. For your daughter.
What about Cassie? You know I would do anything for her.
Prove it. Help her. By helping yourself. Dorian, listen to me. No matter what happens next, I want you to try to handle it with calm and composure. I know that's not going to be easy, but if you love Cassie the way you say to do that, I know you can try to find the strength to handle the rest of this trial with dignity.
Oh, I get it. You think I was faking it on the stand? That it was all an act?
I know that it was real. I know why. The moment Cassie walked into that courtroom, you lost it.
It was all just so unfair. I got on that stand to tell my story, to speak the truth, and Hank Gannon just twisted my... You were there for most of it. You heard it.
I saw it. I'm not going to lie to you. From what I've heard, the jury's response to that breakdown, it was not positive.
There's still Nora's closing statement. She's a brilliant lawyer.
Dorian,
I'm
please,
counting on her.
Dorian, you've got to face the facts here. Now, you were the one that decided not to change your plea to guilty. You were the one that insisted on taking the stand, and now there is a very good chance that you are going to be convicted of murder in the first degree. Now, I am not talking about appeals here. I am not talking about legal maneuvers that could go on and on. I'm talking about what's going to happen next to Cassie. Dorian, you've got to find it in yourself to handle this trial with courage and with grace. Can you do that?
Yes, I think it is very, very possible that I may be convicted. And for Cassie's sake, I will try and be strong, but now I have something to ask of you. Whatever happens to me, I want you to promise that you'll take care of Cassie. I don't like you, Reverend. No, I don't. But you are my daughter's husband. And you better be good to her. Understand?
I understand. You have my promise.
You know, I really hope Mr. Gannon lets Dorian have it. I mean, after what she did to our grandfather, he ought to ask for the max.
Hello, you two.
Oh, Cassie, I'm very sorry that you heard that.
It's okay, Vicky. Don't have any illusions left when it comes to my mother.
I know, but it can't be very easy to have to watch her go through it.
Are you sure you want to be here?
No. It's the last place I want to be, but she is my mother, and I have to stay.
Well, you are very brave.
We'll see you inside. Yeah. She's right, you know that, don't you? I mean, honey, after everything your mother's put you through, it takes a lot of courage to be here.
Maybe I'm just too much of a coward to stay away.
You are no coward, Mrs. Carpenter. Now, you can take that from someone who knows, okay? Good luck.
Dorian, if you don't think you can handle this, I can ask the judge for an adjournment.
No, it's fine. He wouldn't give you one anyway. No, I can handle it. Yes, I most certainly can handle it. And what about you? Have I used up all of my credit with you?
No, I think you got a little left.
I'm going to tell you a story. Now, this is not a happy little bedtime story. This is a dark one with all sorts of twists and turns. It's about a woman who thought she was above the rest of us. A woman who wanted wealth and privilege and power. A woman who would do anything to get it. And nobody could touch her. And for 18 long years, she was right. Nothing did touch her. But the bill has come due. And ladies and gentlemen, you are here, each and every one of you, on behalf of her victim, to collect what she owes. Now, you cannot give Victor Lord back his life, and you cannot undo the pain that she has caused and still causes his family. But you can and you must ensure that justice is finally done. Delayed, yes, but never too late. Never.
The lady's gonna fry.
You never know, my friend.
How's that?
Strange things have been known to happen.
I'm just going to talk to you about the burden of proof and how the Commonwealth has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Dorian Lord is guilty of murder. Sounds like a tall order, yes? But I think that we have seen and heard enough evidence in this trial to erase any doubt. Dorian Lord had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to murder her husband. So, let's talk about the motive. Victor Lord was a very rich man, and the defendant says she saved his life and eventually married him for love. But the victim's daughter, Victoria Lord Buchanan, has testified to a very different kind of a relationship. She saw Dorian make herself indispensable to Victor Lord long before he proposed. He was a weak man in body and in spirit, and Dr. Dorian Lord knew this. She knew that the heart attack he had suffered had taken its toll, and poor old Victor Lord wasn't long for this world. But, hey, why not marry him and wait for nature to run its course? I'll tell you why. Because she was worried that Victor Lord was going to change his will. That's why. And now what about the means? Well, the defendant was a doctor. She took control of Victor Lord's medication. She supervised his care. She knew exactly how much he could take and how little it would take to put him out of his misery. And that is just what she did. Which brings us to opportunity. Now, we've heard Nurse Ethel Crawford, an eyewitness, testify that she saw Dorian Lord place a pillow over Victor Lord's face and smother him to death. Well, no reasonable doubt there. She saw the defendant smother her own husband. The autopsy tells us that Victor Lord's nose was broken and that there were polyester fibers consistent with those from the hospital pillow found in his throat. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am looking for reasonable doubt, but I can't seem to find any. Can you? The defense made much of Mr. Chapin, the family butler, who claimed that he saw a mysterious woman by the name of Irene Clayton running from the scene of the crime. But as we've all heard, Mr. Chapin's memory is not quite what it used to be. Time and age have taken their toll. These checks, written over 18 years for Nurse Ethel Crawford and signed by Dorian Lord. 18 years of a cover-up whose purpose was to protect the defendant's social position, her reputation, and her millions she inherited from the husband she killed with her own two hands. But there's more, ladies and gentlemen. The most dreadful and damning proof of all. Even after 18 years of blackmail and cover-up, the truth was getting out, and Dorian Lord had to destroy the last shred of evidence. Now, we've heard from Victoria Buchanan how she found the defendant in Victor Lord's crypt the night before the new autopsy was to take place. Dorian Lord used this tire iron to pry open the sarcophagus. And it is clear that if Victoria Buchanan hadn't arrived on the scene, the defendant would have used this can of caustic lye to destroy any trace of a struggle on Victor Lord's face. What kind of a woman would do such a thing? Well, I'll tell you. The same kind of a woman who would take a pillow in her hand, put it over her husband's mouth and nose, and hold it there, even as he struggled for life, until his struggle stopped, until everything stopped. Everything except her desperate need to cover up her crime. But she can no longer cover up her crime because the evidence is right here. And it is beyond any doubt that Dorian Lord murdered her husband in cold blood. The bill has come due, and it is up to you to make sure that she pays it.
Excuse me, Commissioner. You have a telephone call. It's urgent.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as you've entered this building every day, I hope you notice the word carved above the doorway. It's a simple little word, but it's what holds this building up, this whole town, this whole society in which we live. That word is justice. But 18 years ago, Dorian Lord decided that that word just didn't matter. Now, I trust that you good people will think about that word above the door. And you will ask for justice. You will demand justice for such a crime. Justice can only mean life imprisonment or death. Thank you.
This has been a difficult and at times even wrenching experience for all of us. When emotions have overwhelmed us and unhappy events of the past have been forced to the surface again with all of their pain and confusions intact. But now, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for you to put all of us aside. It's time for you and only you, to take charge of this trial and decide the one thing that really matters. Do you believe that the charges against Dorian Lord are true? Beyond any reasonable doubt? Mr. Gannon has waved his hand and decreed that there are no doubts. But Mr. Gannon is not sitting in one of those 12 chairs. You are. Mr. Gannon doesn't have to pronounce a verdict and recommend punishment. You do. And Mr. Gannon can favor the blackmailer Ethel Crawford's testimony over that of the butler Lee Chapin's, and he can think of Dorian Lord as a black widow spider rather than a very bright and ambitious woman who has struggled all of her life to earn and deserve everything she has. In short, Mr. Gannon can tell you what he thinks, but no one can tell you what you think. All I ask is that you examine the facts as they have been placed before you in this court of law. The facts. Not the district attorney's big, fat fiction. And when you lay aside Mr. Gannon's theories and focus in on the evidence, or the lack of it, I know that you cannot, in good conscience, find Dorian Lord guilty of murder. Fact, Victor Lord died 18 years ago. Fact, there was no criminal investigation at that time. Fact, there was no reason to suspect foul play, or Victor Lord's family, already resenting Dorian Lord by their own admission, would have gone straight to the police. Fact, memories fade. Events become jumbled in the mind like a jigsaw puzzle with some of the pieces long lost under a sofa or an easy chair. And yet the prosecution asks you to accept on faith the vague memories of Nurse Ethel Crawford. Why? Fact. The prosecution's entire case rests solely on the testimony of Ethel Crawford, Victor Lord's nurse at the time of his death. Ethel Crawford, who, by her own admission, is a liar and a blackmailer. I don't have to throw doubt on her integrity. She's done that all by herself. And even if she were telling the truth, that she was in Victor Lord's hospital room that night, washing up in the bathroom, what exactly did she see? She claims to have seen my client smother Victor Lord with a pillow. She's certain of that. She's also certain that the room was dark. She's also certain that she saw the woman from the back. Well, I'm sorry, but how can you be certain that the woman you saw in the dark from the back was indeed the same woman who is sitting here in this courtroom now? Well, you know the answer to that. She can't be certain. It could have been some other woman. Reasonable doubt. What about that other woman? What about the woman seen by Lee Chapin, the trusted and loyal servant of Victor Lord and his family? And yet the prosecution asks, why should we accept an old man's memory of events over those of Ethel Crawford's? I'll tell you why. Because Lee Chapin has no reason to lie. He admitted he never liked the defendant. He didn't come here to help out Dorian Lord. He came here for the sake of that one word that Mr. Gannon keeps tossing around. Justice. Because he remembers all too well that Irene Clayton and Victor Lord were lovers. Yes, Lee Chapin remembers that they quarreled shortly before Victor Lord was hospitalized. Lee Chapin remembers seeing Irene Clayton at the hospital the night that Victor Lord died, and he remembers seeing Irene Clayton rushing from the direction of Victor Lord's hospital room shortly before Ethel Crawford came out of that same room crying for help. That is a fact. That is a very important, critical fact. Because if Victor Lord was murdered the way the prosecution insists, then the murderer could have been Irene Clayton, not Dorian Lord. And if you believe that's a possibility, if you believe that is even remotely possible, as I do, then, ladies and gentlemen, you have reasonable doubt. And you cannot find Dorian Lord guilty. It's very impressive, isn't it, when he piled it all up like this? Very impressive. Look at it now. That's a house of cards. Because I have something else, very important fact that I want to tell you. If anyone but Dorian Lord had been accused of this crime, it would have been laughed right out of this court. But Dorian Lord was charged with murder. Which leads us to the real reason why she is standing here on trial tonight.
ABC.
Why is Dorian Lord on trial? Why has she been charged with a capital crime? It's not because of what she has or hasn't done. It's because of who she is. Dorian Lord's crime is not the murder of Victor Lord. Dorian Lord's crime is being the one woman in Llanview that everyone loves to hate. Well, she's arrogant. She's self-centered. She's ruthless. She's greedy. Everybody knows that, right? Oh, I've studied your faces during this whole trial. I have seen the way you look at the defendant. You don't like her very much. That's all right. I understand. I don't like her much myself. But her personality is not on trial. And her weaknesses and her flaws are not a crime. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been sworn to judge her by what she did, not who she is. And despite all the rumors and resentments that you have heard in this courtroom, there is reasonable doubt as to whether Dorian Lord committed any crime, much less first-degree murder. And if you believe that there is reasonable doubt as to whether she committed the crime with which she has been charged, then you must pronounce her not guilty and let her go free. That isn't mercy. That's justice. Thank you.
Great. Nora was brilliant.
Well, I wonder if Dorian appreciates that.
My own lawyer. I cannot believe the things you say about me.
Dorian, if I can get you an acquittal, I'm sure you'll thank me.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, before I give you your instructions, we'll take a short break. Court is in recess for 10 minutes.
All rise.
I get some fresh air.
Definitely.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you weigh the evidence, one question must be uppermost in your minds. Not would she do it or could she do it, but did she do it? Did Dorian Lord, on the night of the 16th of June, 1976, take a pillow and smother her husband, Victor Lord, to death? Now, if you believe there is reasonable doubt, well, you must return a verdict of not guilty. If, on the other hand, you believe she is responsible for Victor Lord's death, exhibiting an abandoned and malignant heart and acting with malice aforethought, then you must find her guilty. Guilty of murder in the first degree. In our Commonwealth, the punishment for first-degree murder is lifetime imprisonment without parole, or death. Death by lethal injection.
All rise.
Bill, what do you think? Be honest.
I never try to anticipate.
Your gut feeling. Tell me.
I don't know, Dorian. I don't know. Why don't you try and get some rest, all right? I know it's impossible, but it could be hours, even days.